Hey guys, this is Eckhartsladder. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars gaming YouTube video over here on EcksToo. And before we begin, I just gotta say thank you. We recently hit 100,000 subscribers over here on EcksToo, and frankly, I wasn't sure when I started this second channel whether we'd ever reach that really impressive milestone. You guys have blown me away with your level of support, and it's just been so amazing to see this new community sprout up and embrace us. So whether you're a subscriber who watches every video or just a viewer who occasionally checks out the channel, I want to take a second from the bottom of my heart and say thank you. Alright, so before its reboot under EA, the Star Wars Battlefront series was one of the most successful Star Wars video game properties of the 2000s. Battlefront 2, created by Pandemic Studios, was arguably a rushed game, coming out just a year after Star Wars Battlefront 1. However, Free Radical Games, working with Lucasfilm, intended to create a Star Wars Battlefront 3 for next-generation consoles, but alas, it never was to be. Although, according to certain reports, Star Wars Battlefront 3 was anywhere from 75% to 99% finished, it never saw a full release and can only be played if you manage to secure leaked files and have access to an Xbox 360 dev kit, which, of course, most of us do not. So, Star Wars Battlefront 3, despite being far on into production, never saw a full release, and we're not really sure why. Some have claimed that it was simply because the game was very mediocre, and after Free Radical's release of Haze, they weren't willing to release another just okay game, while others have attributed the cancellation to LucasArts simply imposing milestones which weren't really possible to meet, and of course a level of mismanagement across the board in both Free Radical and LucasArts. Either way, whether you place the fault in LucasArts or Free Radical or external forces, the game was cancelled, and after both the closing of Free Radical and of course the Star Wars license moving to EA, the series would be ended and rebooted. But what could the Free Radical Battlefront 3 have actually looked like had it been fully completed? And as I said, if you've got a dev kit for an Xbox 360, there are files that you can download to actually try the game out. Otherwise, there's a ton of footage available on both YouTube and Google. From all that I've watched, it seems like one of the main new features would have been the further integration of space battle with regular combat, and this is one of the features that the new Star Wars Battlefront games were sorely lacking. Space combat, or flying starfighters, felt completely distinct from fighting on the ground, and in Battlefront 2, for example, when you grab a starfighter, you don't really feel like you're totally in the ground battle. Like, you are getting points so you can earn reinforcements or whatever else, and sometimes you can even attack objectives, but it feels like a completely different thing. The cancelled Battlefront 3, however, would have essentially taken the ground and space battle modes made by Pandemic for Battlefront 2 and turned them into one giant mode. Basically, you can start on the ground, you can fight for command post and whatever else, sort of as you expect, but you can also jump in fighters, you can attack capital ships directly, you can land within capital ships, so it's sort of a merging of everything we've seen up to this point. And I think the idea of fighting a battle on a planet's surface, then jumping in a starfighter, flying through the atmosphere, and fighting in a space battle is kind of what we all dreamed of as kids. Or at least what I did as a hardcore Battlefront fan back in the day. So this style of gameplay is really exciting. But let's talk specifically about the campaign. And unfortunately, we know almost nothing about how the Star Wars Battlefront 3 story would have went. However, we do know that it may have featured the X1 and X2 clones, which were later appropriated by Star Wars Battlefront Elite Squadron. On that note, it does seem like Elite Squadron, which released only for the Nintendo DS and the PSP, the PSP, by the way, being one of the most underrated handheld consoles of all time, was sort of an effort by LucasArts to make use of all of the work that had went into the potential full console release for Star Wars Battlefront 3. But this is all speculation. The only other thing we can say about the campaign is that it would have at least taken place somewhat during the Clone Wars, but I'm going to speculate that it would have followed the X1 and X2 clones across several different eras. One scene that looks cool to me is from a leaked internal trailer where we can sort of see the clones dealing with the immediate aftermath of Order 66 and attempting to take down Jedi Masters. When it comes to multiplayer, just like campaign, we get a lot of pre-alpha footage, but I will say Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2 were really ugly games, even for their time period. Star Wars Battlefront 3, however, looked to be more in line with contemporary games of the sort of late 2000s, given again that the graphics we're looking at now are not representative of what the game would have actually looked like. We see hints of what I would be looking for from a next generation Battlefront game. First of all, improved AI. The AI in the first two games are just kind of dreadful, although there are lots of them, which is one bonus. And a furthering of cinematic gameplay while also maintaining a sandbox feel, which this game seems like it would have delivered. We see more cinematics through scenes like this drop pod impacting with the planet's surface, while sandbox gameplay seems to be, if anything, improved, because multiplayer would have had the same sort of extension of space ground warfare from Battlefront 2. You can fight on the ground, as we see on this Coruscant map, or attack cruisers directly, which is, well, really cool. To me, it's really disappointing that whatever sort of issue there was either between LucasArts and Free Radical, or perhaps just within one of those companies, could not be settled, because Battlefront 3 really looks like it did have a promising multiplayer. And to be honest, if Battlefront 3 had released in the state that we see, with of course finishing touches, it looks like it may have been the first proper single player Battlefront game. Battlefront 1 and 2 do technically have single player campaigns, but even the second one sort of just has a campaign as a tacked on mode. When you play it, you're basically just doing missions that you could ordinarily do within multiplayer gameplay. The campaigns for both games are also really short, and I've done a full playthrough of Battlefront 2 if you just look it up on YouTube, and it took maybe 3 or 4 hours. Ultimately, however, we'll probably never know exactly what happened, and to be honest, it doesn't really matter. Pointing fingers at this point isn't exactly helpful. We won't be getting the game back. That being said, there is currently an ongoing project known as Battlefront Legacy, which basically tries to incorporate what we've seen from Battlefront 3 into Battlefront 2 as a mod. Battlefront 3 Legacy is still seeing ongoing development, and I will make sure to link to its ModDB page down in the description. But guys, that's all I have for today. What do you think about the potential of Battlefront 3? As I've said before, I think Battlefront 2 was sort of a missed opportunity of its own, and I know Corey agrees with me on this. It sort of deals with the KOTOR 2 syndrome, where it was simply released too soon after the prior game and didn't have enough time to breathe or really fundamentally improve on the game's gameplay. Battlefront 3 would have added to a formula that works, it would have taken it to a new generation, and I just think it had a lot of potential. But again, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Until next time guys, please be safe, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.